All right, welcome back. It's now 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is Morning Express. In case you're joining us now, welcome aboard. I'll start by introducing the guests that we have this morning to go through the dailies. This morning, to my extreme left, I have Senator Irungo Kangata, Senator for Maraga County. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we also have Ambrose Weda, who is a regular and a lawyer. Good morning and welcome, gentlemen. Hope you had yourselves a great weekend. And let's go straight into the dailies. And we'll start, as usual, with the Standard, where the headline is Doubt Reigns over lifestyle audit order. And, well, the 30-day window that had been given for the lifestyle audit to begin, there are those who had even been told to step aside for them to account for their wealth. And if they're not found wanting, then they go back to office. But 30 days have rolled by, 30 working days have rolled by, and that seems not to have happened as expected, and still no clarity. I'll start with you, Rongo Kangata. Your one, I think, was in support of the lifestyle audit. However, it looks like the framework and the guidelines for it are not clear to a point where it may not happen as expected.
I think the timeline was insufficient. Probably the president needs to reconsider and add more time, probably 3 months. You'd imagine how many parastatals we have, how many ministries, departments we have, and we expect to have lifestyle audit on each and every department. So therefore, from where I sit, the president should consider extending that period.
Is it just the time that is required or structures? Maybe we are working in a very dark room where we cannot tell what direction we're taking, such that it has delayed, because majority of those who've even had been asked to step aside have not had any communication whatsoever.
Yes, I agree also. We need to put up structures, that is, who is going to do the lifestyle audits, or the structure of the interview or the process, the expected outcomes, and that may take time. And probably that may even attract a policy direction or even regulations, which is going to guide all that process.
Okay.
So from where I sit, 1 month was quite insufficient. We need to extend that period.
The period. Whether do you think it's just the time that's lacking and possibly extension? And again, there are those who might argue that extending it without a framework might still be a waste of time.
I think orders without framework, without the framework through which it will be implemented by who, what methods, and so on and so forth, basically means it remains an order. It means maybe the president, in his anger of the way the people are behaving, he made the order, but I think he didn't make it on the basis of preparations and on the basis of the clear picture that needed to be passed. So extending time, even if you extend another 60 days, without knowing who is going to do the audit, what is the framework, and so on and so forth, it will still come to zero. There are also laws that prevent such kind of behavior. There are decisions of the court that have said, first, you cannot require somebody you suspect of anything to reveal to you incriminating evidence. There is always a right to silence. So if you come to audit me, I will keep quiet. I will not tell you where my children go to school, what they do, how much I pay, and so on and so forth. And whether in the absence of a framework where you can carry a rungu or a nyaunyo and then you put me down and say, tell us, it becomes extremely difficult, especially when there is no set department in government that is, this is the department of lifestyle audit. Do you understand?
Yes.
So without such department, I don't know whether you'll send the CIDs or you send, because everybody needs lifestyle audit.
Okay.
So it's difficult.
It's difficult. Senator, we do know that the president put this order out so that, well, we'd have some direction in the fight against corruption. And it seems like that may not be the case. I mean, it may not be an avenue that Kenyans can explore to expect those who've possibly misused public funds to be caught. Because, one, there's no framework. Two, there seems to be no direction. Three, time has lapsed.
No, I disagree with you. I think it is a very good idea. It's an idea which, if it can be structured well, it can give us very good outcomes. It is true, we are yet to come up with a framework, and that framework is quite necessary. But that does not mean the idea is bad or is not going to give us the expected outcomes.
Outcome.
Yes, probably that's why I'm of the view we need to give the president more time. He needs to extend that period so that he creates those structures. And the best structures, by the way, I think they do exist in one way or another. We have the CID. You know, the CID are policemen, and policemen have wide powers when it comes to enforcing various laws under the Penal Code or even other laws. We also have the EACC. Again, this is also vested with vast and wide-ranging powers, which, if can be crystallized well, they can assist us to shepherd this process over a long period of time. So therefore, from where I see it, it's an issue of time. It's an issue also of probably the president coming up with a gazette notice or even a publication of a certain regulations, which regulations are going to give certain procedures, certain timelines, repose certain powers on certain institutions, which are going now to conduct that process.
Okay. All right. And looking at other stories within the paper, we have on page 5, more than 150 students end term 2 in the dock. Now, whether I know you are involved in schools and you would have something to say about this, 150 students in the dock basically having been arrested. This, of course, is a red flag for a bigger problem. The issue is not just the fact that they've been arrested, but the fact that what might be going wrong in schools, and why would students get to a point where they've become criminals, quote unquote?
I think it is unfortunate. I think where we are, there is a big disconnect between the students and the parents, the generation of the parents. The way they think, the way we have brought them up, the way they see things, I have seen is almost totally different from the way we do things. You will find a grown-up child in Form 4. You ask 1 or 2 questions, they start crying. Even when they are happy, they cry. When they are sad, they cry. So that gap has brought such a huge disconnect. And in the management of schools, the way sometimes you hear the ministers coming up with policies. They talk in their kitchens, then tomorrow they say these policies will do this. That kind of disconnect drives the situations where we are. It is now fashionable for one school to emulate the other. This school have already gone on strike. What are we still waiting for? When we were young, if a school went on strike, they were like a pariah school. You look and say, don't emulate. But now they do emulate. So I think we need a new re-engineering, both parents, teachers, and students. We wait until they have banned the schools. Then the parents come breathing, the ministry comes breathing, but that time it is late.
It's a bit late.
You would see that the banning has been there for the last almost 7 years. Always is a circle, but we have never found a solution for it because the Ministry of Education comes up with a raft of orders, not based on any empirical research, not based on any discussions, just based on fiat authority. And then when they finish, you see now, like Minister Mina, she comes up with issues. She tells people, oh, if you are caught, you will not, it will be in your CV, it will be in your what, it will be what. And some of these children are able to say, let me just give up. Now that they have closed all chapters, let me ban the rest so that we ban with them. So I think that the Ministry of Education should rethink. They should avoid the fiat way of looking at things and adopt new approaches.
Okay. Irungu Kangata, your thoughts on what might be bedeviling our schools? 152 students is a very huge number of students who have gone to school and have ended up in the dock. Really, for any parent, it would be very disappointing to be paying fees for your child and then they end up in front, being arrested.
Personally, I think the problem is the subculture that has been adopted by our students in high school. I think that subculture has been there for a very long time. This is not something that is happening this year. We know, for instance, if you can recall when we were in high school, there was this culture of moralization, where it was fashionable to molest Form 1s. I don't know whether that culture is still there or not, but I can recall when we were young, that was also a certain subculture, which was quite negative. You recall things like academic fire, that once you're done with Form 4, before you do your final exam, you would burn your books. You would have a huge fire and then you would burn your books. There are certain cultures which are specific to high school students which have some negative connotation. If you are to look to, and if you are to ask around, most people who drink alcohol, they started that in high school. Those people who smoke cigarette, they started that in high school. And therefore, we may have to think from a sociological point of view, how do we change that culture? It is a long process. It's not a one-day process. And it requires huge investments. And that advice, and maybe the best way forward, would be given by the people who have studied sociology. And myself, as an advocate, I'm not quite trained in that area. But that disconnect is not something new. Every generation is always disconnected with that other generation.
I think what might
be that as it may, there is one proposal which I have seen being given by the ministry, which I have always supported. The whole idea of us embracing the day schools. I think the whole idea of a day school, to me, if you go to advanced societies, you'll be surprised to learn that 95% of those countries, they don't have boarding facilities.
Boarding schools.
So I don't know why in Kenya we still have clung to that idea for a very long time. I think we must always appreciate that children belong to parents. They're the one who have the best capability of bringing them up. And therefore, we should somehow continue expanding our day school facilities to ensure children have optimum time with their parents.
All right. And let's now take a look at the Daily Nation, where the headline is Maraga is firm. We made the right decision. This is an exclusive interview that he did, and basically still defends the fact that he feels he did not make the wrong decision when it came to nullifying the election. But that is behind us. He also pours out his frustration about members of parliament revisiting the judiciary budget, how court development is grinding to a halt and being at the mercy of what he says men who do not even take his calls. Whether as a lawyer, as somebody who's got vast experience in the corridors of law, is this part of the revisiting, the fact that the budget which the judiciary required was halved? And of course, the Chief Justice came out very clearly to say that that amount of money will affect services, whether we like it or we don't.
First of all, whether or not the slashing of the budget will affect the delivery of justice, that is true. Going half the budget is basically killing the judiciary at a time when they are also under pressure to deliver. What our members of parliament and the people who decide on the budget do not know is that the only refuge you have is our courts. And we are lucky that this country, we have an independent judiciary. I said on this forum, and I repeat, I did not agree with the decision of the Supreme Court when they nullified the president's. Yes. But I was happy with the courage they had. It gives you hope that you can walk into your court and have an issue with your president and they look and say, Getonga, you're right. That's rare.
It's a very high threshold.
It's a very high threshold that gives you, it gives the pinnacle of freedom. And that if your men and women of your country are capable of taking such courage, you congratulate them, even when you disagree with them. So there it is good. You see some of these MPs, they run to court. Now when they are under threat, they run. When you saw the likes of Jamongo, they were crying, please grant us bail. Grant us bail. And you find some magistrates are misbehaving, you go to the High Court, they tell you, you are entitled to bail, please get it. This is the functions of a decent country. Now when the bitterness of nullification and the slashing of the budget comes, even if it is not revisiting, it may be difficult not to be seen in that context. So I think some people, not necessarily the president, I think they think, Justice Maraga, you better finish quickly and leave. There's no love lost between us, and they're missing the point. We need a vibrant judiciary that works very well. On the other hand, I think also the judiciary has one problem. We have quite a number of face of Kenya judges. Face of Kenya judges, gender judges. Judges that were not picked on the basis of competence, ability, knowledge. They were picked, this one will represent the Luos, this one will represent the Kisis. They form a big chunk. And therefore, some of the decisions you see from the court also leaves a lot to be desired. But that requires that we do not approach the judiciary as an enemy. So I think the executive should rethink.
Okay.
I had said that we should have budgeted, during the budget, we should have budgeted for the amount of money that will be lost in the corruption. So that we get our figures right. We know this 3 trillion, 300 billion will be lost.
To be lost.
So part of it we can save, even another 10% of the corruption money, and then we give to the judiciary.
Okay. Senator Irungu Kangata, as a legislator, why would one arm of government, starve, so to speak, another arm of government, and a very, very crucial arm of government, the judiciary?
Well, it is not true. I think Chief Justice is not being candid, and for several reasons.
When you say he's not being candid,
not
what do
being
you mean?
candid.
Because it is clear that budget was... it's
One, how many departments brought their proposals and they were slashed? It's not him alone. So many departments. I don't know whether you have been in Parliament when we have that process of budget making. So many departments come with huge requests. Some come up with 100 billion, some have come up, I don't know, huge request. And it's the work of Parliament to say, no, we can't afford this because of this and this reason. So therefore, it's not unique. It's not the judiciary alone. You will find even Parliament itself. You ask and inquire, what was the budget that was presented before the committee that is headed by...
That may be true, but half is ridiculously low.
Leave alone that half. There are others which made proposals ranging, let's say, to 50 billion, and they got maybe 5 billion. It is not something that is unique to judiciary. That is usually the work of Parliament to slash down various proposals, not because of self-interest, because of a certain, what we call, logical economic principle, which says that what the wants are unlimited, but the resources are scarce. So there's no way you can say it was targeted to judiciary.
The judiciary.
You go to Parliament, take out that list, all those presentations that were made before the budget committee that is headed by Ishungu. Look at those proposals. You will see there's no single department which got that which it requested. There is usually very intense negotiations. There is usually very objective analysis, and there is usually a lot of cutting down of those proposals because we have few resources.
Despite
Number two, I think
despite the fact that cutting down those proposals, even according to the Chief Justice, is going to slow down some of the projects that are there for the judiciary to even, for instance, clear all the cases that have been pending. That requires, like now, the removal of the mobile courts. That's one of the things that they said that with the budget being cut, that may have to be done away with.
First and foremost, you should be telling us, for the last several years, what has been judiciary budget? Judiciary budget, by the way, it has been on an incremental trajectory since this government came into power. So meaning, by the way, when you look at for several years, if I can recall, there was a time judiciary used to get about 1 billion. In this country, by the way, not long ago. But after a certain period, it shot to a certain, it shot by a huge margin.
And there is
then last year, by the way, before this financial year, Mr. Maraga should be telling us how much has Parliament allocated to judiciary last year. You will see there's not much change. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, judiciary has received more funding compared to last year. I think to the best of my knowledge, last time they got about 16 billion or 15. They have now gotten an extra. No. He can't know. He can't know by the way.
And I'm sure he's disagreeing, so I want to find out what he's disagreeing with.
He can't know. This is an issue of Parliament. It's not a legal issue.
But it's not a secret issue. He can have documents in regards to that. It's not reserved to Parliament.
This position of deputy something makes it difficult for you to... You see, it is, yes, you must toe the line of government. The fact is this: the slashing of the budget depends on the roles you play. The president says we want to deal with issues of corruption. You can't deal with them in the streets. You take them to court. You need judges, you need things, you need access to justice. That's what the new constitution requires. So when you slash it and say they used to get 1 billion, yes, they used to get 1 billion when our budget was 300 billion. Now we are 3 trillion. We spent 300 billion shillings on corruption. So when we do not want to finance our justice system and still expect them to perform, surely you say, when Parliament comes to say it is us who are doing, what were they considering? That is why Maraga would say, look, I think they're just revisiting. They want to cripple me so that by the time I leave, Kenyans can say I was a useless Chief Justice.
No,
that is what you can easily read.
No.
And that should stop.
No. Is Judiciary the only institution whose budget was slashed?
Definitely not.
It is not. It is not.
Definitely
and
not, Senator.
Number two. Remember, we have other social programs which needs to be funded, right?
But
we have education that needs to be funded. We have, for instance, power electrification all over this country. We have so many demands.
That is true. But there's the issue of priority, because the justice system, that's a last go-to place when we need arbitration. But I'll have to pause you right there, because we need to take a short break and release our KTN Home viewers, and Life and Style begins in just a bit. On KTN News, we continue with, well, the way it is in just a bit. For now, we take that break. KTN Home viewers, we say goodbye.